You can spend lots of time going on YouTube, reading people's blogs, even listening to podcasts like this. But if you can find someone you trust and you understand what they're teaching, they can save you time if you just follow them, if you dive into what they're looking at teaching you. That's why we put together pillarsofpractice.com, a totally free e-course to help you, whether you're a solo practitioner or a group practitioner, to get the basic checklists and trainings that you need to rock out your private practice. So head on over to pillarsofpractice.com to get access to this free e-course. Again, that's pillarsofpractice.com. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 942. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast. This is our first podcast of the new year, and we are kicking off a new year, new habits series over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sessions. We are going to be talking about New Year and new habits. So welcome to the new year. Hope you're doing great. I actually wrote a blog post back in November. I had at this time, my kids now know this. I don't think they listen to my podcast, but gave them a trip to Disney for Christmas because I'm kind of sick of all the junk in our house and wanted to have experiences as part of it. And so in December, we went to see Hamilton in Chicago, and then we're just in a little bit here going to go to Disney. And 60 days before you go to Disney is when you're supposed to make your like dinner reservations. So I was up at 6 a.m. on a Sunday making dinner reservations and got the reservation I wanted. And usually I am a guy that sleeps in until 10:30 or 11 on the weekends. Like I am like a teenager that never grew up. And so I got this Disney reservation and I could not fall back asleep. So I just woke up at 6 and got so much done and like meditated, went for a walk, went down to the water and just all these different things. And I wrote this blog post about just viewing New Year, not through the resolution lens, but through an experimental lens. The thing I talk about so much in Thursdays, the New Friday, or on those podcasts of just saying to yourself, I wonder what would happen or how I would feel if I tried this new habit. If I tried just something a little bit different, if I thought through things, in a way that, maybe I haven't thought through them. So it could be, I wonder how I would feel if I just went to bed half an hour earlier or woke up half an hour earlier or, didn't drink for a couple weeks or if I did a 1-minute plank every single day. There's these experiments that instead of saying, I'm going to do a plank for a minute a day for the next year, and then in February you let it fall off, maybe it's easier to just say, if you stop doing those things, maybe it wasn't working for you. And so I want to encourage you. You can go back and read that blog post if you want. It's about New Year's experiments and over at Practice the Practice. But think through what are those habits that you're just giving a whirl. And I'm really excited today for our guest. Today we have Omar Ruiz. And Omar, I'm so excited to have him on the show today. We're going to be talking about adding different streams of income. Omar is a licensed marriage and family therapist, plus a business coach out of the Boston, Massachusetts area. As a business coach for therapists, he specializes in helping private practice owners improve their online presence so they can attract the clients they want, especially private pay. He's currently growing a YouTube channel where he's produced detailed videos with quality marketing tips, and he's been featured in places like WebMD, Huffington Post, and Women's Health, and was one of the pre-note presenters at the 2023 Mental Health Marketing Conference. Omar, welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really glad that our friend Steve Turney connected us after that marketing conference. It's always great to connect with other business coaches and therapists that are doing this kind of work. I want you to start with, tell us a little bit about your private practice. What's that look like?
Yeah, so I have a solo private pay practice. I physically live in Boston, but my practice is located in a suburban area that's called Wellesley, which is about a 25-minute drive from the main Boston metropolitan area. And I have what is considered a hybrid practice where 2 days out of the week, I'm online seeing clients through telehealth, and then 1 day out of the week, I'm seeing them in person. And my specialty in that practice is working with couples struggling with infidelity.
Mm. Now, how long ago did you start the practice?
I started it. So I got licensed as a marriage and family therapist in December of 2013, and then immediately got a consultation with a previous supervisor and was able to get started in February of 2014. And then I had, so that was part time. A lot of folks might consider it like a side gig or a side hustle, but it was very much what I would consider a real part time business. And I've had that private practice as an insurance based practice in the beginning and had it for about 4.5 years until I had to make a personal decision to close it out. There were some just financial issues that I was dealing with. And then I ended up having to go back and work full time as a middle school counselor. And then a year later, so it was from February 2014 and closed it on August of 2018. And then I reopened it as a private pay model in September of 2019. And as you can imagine, it was just a few months before COVID. And then as soon as COVID hit and we were all quarantined, I realized that I needed to learn how to build the practice through different marketing tactics, because a lot of what I was doing before was what I would consider traditional marketing, like passing out business cards and going to networking meetings. But then once COVID and the pandemic started, I needed to take a pivot because I quickly realized a private pay practice is a very much different business model than insurance based because it's all focused on marketing. And then it took me about 2 years and some change to be able to transition full time into my practice. And that was after taking time of what I would call going to YouTube University and just watching different videos, such as videos that were posted on Practice of the Practice and other consultants and private practice coaches that are out there. And then I finally was able to transition full time, where I now have it just running automatically and me not necessarily thinking much of it. Where on a regular basis, I get about 4 to 6 consultation calls for the practice, and that has allowed me to sustain it as a full time business.
Mm. Now, you said that you went to YouTube University. I love that. Outside of practice and practice, who else did you find to be especially helpful? I always love to hear who else is doing good work out there.
Yeah, so at that time, I took a big deep dive in trying to find as many resources. So it was, and I'm just naming them off the top of my head: Practice of the Practice, Private Practice Workshop, Private Practice Skills, Zenny Me, um, there was one more, Abundance
Mhm.
Dance Party. So there was a lot of, at the time, a lot of different, I would say, coaches and consultants that I would watch and just take in a lot of the information that they had shared. At the time, I wasn't in the space to hire any of them, simply because since I had already had a practice for 4.5 years, most of the information that was shared were things that I had already known. What I needed support on essentially was understanding the marketing aspects. And with COVID, there wasn't a space for me to really invest in what was being offered, and so I just every single day would just listen to different YouTube videos and just, I would say, go down the rabbit hole of any videos that it would suggest, and I would take down notes of what's being shared as far as like different marketing tactics. And once I heard a marketing tactic, let's just say SEO, I then started searching articles and more videos about it. And that's how I end up diving into the world of what is called like digital marketing or online marketing.
Yeah, yeah. Those are all friends of mine that are doing awesome work. So that's cool to hear who you were following. Um, so you then start to transition into business coaching as another stream of income. How did that idea come in? Like, what were your first steps? How did you think through that decision?
Yeah, so I had to be fully honest, I had no idea that I would even transition into business coaching. I That wasn't even part of my plan originally when I decided to reopen the practice on the private pay, I thought, let me first get started solo and then transition into a group practice. But then I was introduced to the idea of joining and looking for private practice Facebook groups. Never had thought about those groups ever existing, and so I started searching them and then joining them. But I joined them with the intent of seeing, was there anything else that I could learn from other therapists in practice, regardless of what state they're from, to see if there was anything I could do to enhance what I already had. And then very quickly, I realized that I had a lot more to offer than to receive from others. And the funny piece was that as soon as I was starting to give a lot of feedback, so for those who aren't aware or who aren't part of any Facebook private practice groups, the culture tends to be that therapists would post up questions and related to the business aspect of it, whether if it's marketing or client consultations. And so I would give in a lot of feedback. And then very quickly, I would get kicked out and suspended from some groups. And that's when I was learning that there's a culture with most, not all, but with most Facebook groups that are dedicated to private practice, whereby the owners or the owner has developed this group as a way to promote their private practice building program or services. And so from that point, that's when I realized like maybe this might be something that could be a benefit for me to transition into the business coaching side. And I would always get a lot of messages from folks within these groups asking if I offered coaching, and I didn't. And so I decided to let me entertain the idea. And then I would meet with a couple of folks individually through Zoom and offer them some support of some of the knowledge that I was able to acquire through my almost 10 years in private practice. And then from there, I got a lot of positive feedback. And so that's when I decided to maybe this is my new path. Maybe this is the path I need to take, which is to become a business coach for therapists. And that's when I started researching and looking into the previous coaches, such as like yourself and the other consultants that are out there, and started thinking through, well, how can I um, differentiate myself between all the other coaches that already exist? And that's when I realized, well, how I built my private pay practice was through learning online strategies. And that's when I came up with the brand Online Private Practice. And so that's where I landed today, where I'm working towards trying to build this business coaching business as a way to help therapists improve their online presence so that way, just as I was able to successfully build my practice over time, I could also help other therapists do the same thing.
Hmm. Now, I'm wondering about some of the kind of mental side of this. You mentioned all these people you were following. I know that when I started my podcast, I was following Pat Flynn, John Lee Dumas, all these other kind of business podcasters, and there was definitely a feeling of like, who am I to jump in this space? And these people are doing all this amazing work. I think at the time Pat had 100 or 200 podcast episodes, and you know, to just feel like, who am I? Um, how did you sort through jumping into what you and I, even before we started recording, is increasingly becoming a crowded space of consulting types of people? Like, how did you think through the mental side of it, or the kind of who am I to do this side of it?
Well, to me, I would label it as imposter syndrome, and I'm gonna be honest, it still exists. It that when For me, whenever I was giving support to people, I think to myself like, just like how you said it, who am I to offer this sort of knowledge or understanding? And the way I combat it is that I've always taken, not always, but since transition to business coaching, I've taken this stance of anything that I share, um, anybody can Google fact check me. So I realized that, and I was actually listening to one of your podcast episodes where you had mentioned this tagline. I might be butchering it, but it was, we no longer are in the information age, we're in the implementation age,
You did
in
not
which
butcher that. That's exactly what I said. Well done. I was actually, as you were saying that, I'm like, I'm going to say that. And then you're such a good student. Look at you. That's incredible.
And so when I heard that in my mind, I'm like, oh shit, like this is exactly what I'm doing because, as with the advancement of technology, such as this big movement of AI or artificial intelligence, one of the after I heard you say that on the podcast, I was scrolling through TikTok, and then there was a comedy skit where, and I wish I could find it, but the comedy skit essentially was this person interviewing someone else as though like they're interviewing for a job, and they said, "Could you please explain me how would you fix this?" And the person basically took their phone and voice recorded that same question onto Chat GPT. And so for Chat GPT, for those folks who aren't at this point aware, Chat GPT is just a generative program that you can type in a prompt and it will spit out some responses or some information, as opposed to you going on Google and searching for it and having to sift through the results. So essentially, that skit ended where the person said, "Well, I don't need you to go to ChatGPT. Anybody can go to ChatGPT and get the response." And then the person's rebuttal was, "Yes, but you still need a person to implement what ChatGPT shares." And that's when I came to realize, like, maybe that's what my stance is, which is we live in a world where information is abundant. People can Google anything, go to ChatGPT or use any AI software, or do what I do, which is go to YouTube University and listen to people. But at the end of the day, even with all this information that's available and accessible to people, you still need to figure out how to implement that information. And I think that that's what I try to hold on to, so that that way I'm not going beyond myself to feel as though like who am I to enter into this space of other business coaches and consultants. Is that people might choose me or the support that I offer because they need that support around implementing that information,
Mhm.
because some people have a different learning curve.
Yeah, it's like if you think about almost any industry, information's not the problem. People know the basics of how to lose weight. You eat fewer calories than you consume, you work out, you know, whatever. There's really pretty basic things to losing weight, getting toned, building muscle, whatever your kind of fitness goals might be. And knowing this is airing on the 2nd of January, I think this is rather pertinent. But people pay for a personal trainer because they want the accountability. They want, the hack where, yeah, if you eat this celery juice before you work out, it's going to help with this, or whatever the thing is. These people, focus on your macros, whatever. They're teaching you something quicker than if you had just gone to YouTube, and they're helping you then implement it, which I think that's where we can have all the knowledge in the world and know exactly how to do something, we still don't do it. I know how to keep my house clean, and yet do I keep it organized with two little kids all the time? No. I make that choice. That's why I have a cleaning person come every 2 weeks, and I set time aside. And so I think that idea of putting so much time into like a YouTube university or something like that is a great idea, and it's good when you have the time to do it. And if you don't, then it's like find that person that's done it before. It gives you the hack, because so many of those Facebook groups, you end up leaving even more confused than you started, based on everything people are sharing.
Hmm. No, I certainly agree, and where I landed as of now is whenever I've spent time studying other business coaches, consultants, or private practice building programs, it tends to, at least to me, I'm not sure if it's for you, but it tends to be in three different buckets. It's do it yourself or DIY, done with you or DWY, or done for you, DFY. So the do it yourself, like that aspect for me would be whenever I create YouTube videos where I just showcase visually what a therapist can do to try to market their practice online. In the future, I'm thinking about creating courses because there are some people who need the visual step by step, but that has more to do with understanding therapists who are more self learners, who want to go their own self pace with learning the material and trying to implement it. Then you have your done with you services, which I feel as though that's where I'm at right now, which is I'm the guiding force of teaching you how to do it and then doing it with you within like a Zoom coaching session where I'll share my screen, we'll look through your online materials that you have, and then I give you some strategies, tips, or advice based on what I've learned. And then the done for you to me has more to do with like specialty paid services that I'm not at avail. I'm not at a point in my business where I can offer that, which is if you want a website, you pay for a website designer. If you want a logo, you pay for a graphic artist to do that. And so that is like services that if you have the available funds and you want to pay for it and get it done without you having to do it, then that's available for you. And so that's where, to me, I would like to get there one day with the business coaching business, but as of now, I feel as though I'm offering like the two, the do it yourself to the YouTube channel for now until future online courses, and then the done with you.
Mm, that's awesome. Going in network with insurance can be tough. I know when I took insurance, there were long wait times and it was so confusing. Filing all the right paperwork is time consuming and tedious, and even after you're done, it can take months to get credentialed and start seeing clients. That's why Alma makes it easy and financially rewarding to accept insurance. When you join their insurance program, you can get credentialed within 45 days and access enhanced reimbursement rates with major payers. They also handle all of the paperwork from eligibility checks to claims submissions and guarantee payment within 2 weeks of each appointment. Once you've joined Alma's insurance program, you can see clients in your state of licensure, regardless of where you're working from. It's amazing to know that you can be fully online. Learn more about building a thriving practice with Alma at helloalma.com/Joe. That's hello, ALMA.com/Joe to get started. So when you think about kind of someone listening right now, they have a counseling practice, either solo group. Um, they feel like they have skills that in some way people would want coaching or consulting around. What's the like quick 5 minute masterclass you would give them on what to think through, how to dip their toes in, how to know if it's worth it? Like, what would you suggest they do to just start exploring that?
The first thing I would recommend they do is they need to research that specific coach or program. We Similar to how people can go to Google and type up anything and get a response, then I would highly recommend that folks type up onto Google then either the name of the coach or the name of the coaching business. Reason being is because um, I am in. I'm a true believer of the value of social proof, which within an online market would be their reputation or reviews or testimonials, because people hold more belief in other people who have used that service and benefited from that service more than the actual coach or provider themselves. And so I would say the first thing would be to research the coach. Second is to have a clear understanding of your learning style and curve. Are you someone who is more self driven, where, like, for example, for me, when I was building my practice, I didn't hire a coach. I was someone who I enjoyed listening and watching videos and trying it myself. So I was more of a hands on person. Could I have benefited and got to where I am now quicker by hiring a coach? Oh, definitely. Because that would have supported me with the guidance. But I tell folks all the time, business coaching to me is a luxury service. You don't need it to build your practice or grow it, but it is beneficial to you to be able to find someone that can help you guide. Just like the example you gave with the personal trainer. No one needs a personal trainer, but you can benefit from having one because they're going to be the one keeping you accountable to your goals. And there's going to be people in all spectrums. There's going to be someone who has the motivation and the skill set to do it on their own, while others need that help. And so I would say that would be the second. And then the last thing would be understanding the financial commitment when it comes to deciding to hire a business coach or a consultant, simply because even though the information is abundant and it's free and it's available, the time that the coach or the consultant or the practice building program is committing to trying to support you, it does come at a cost. Just like when I tell therapists, when you're marketing your practice, yes, people can go to their friends and families for emotional support, but there's a reason why they're going to you, and they're going to you because you're a specialist in the issues that they're dealing with, and they need that professional support. And that's what I would say the business coach would be. They're a specialist in whatever areas that you might be looking for. So if you need someone who is a specialist in growing from a solo to a group practice, then that's what you're going to do. You're going to look for a business coach that has that experience. I make it clear. I don't help solo practitioners to go into a group practice because I don't have a group practice. It would be a disservice for me to lie to people and say that I can help them with that. My aspect is more of like the marketing piece. So if folks need help with the marketing piece, then research that person. Of course, I can be biased and say I would love for folks to hire me, but there are other people out there. Like if you're not comfortable working with a male coach, then you can look to see if there's a female coach. And that's perfectly fine because that's the same consumer mindset that clients have when they're looking for a provider.
Mm. Now, as people, if they want to go into coaching, what should they consider if they want to be a coach?
Uh, the first thing I was able to learn is that coaching is a separate business than your therapy practice. I would never recommend anybody to combine your coaching services within your private practice because those are completely two different services. Um, because therapy services is a highly regulated, or therapy in itself is a highly regulated field as compared to business coaching or just coaching in general. So that's the first thing. The second is um, understand what support can you provide and understand what is your lane. So, for instance, I a few months back I had produced a video on Google Ads for therapists. I will be very straightforward. I taken a course on Google Ads? Yes. Have I tried it myself and got some clients out of it? Yes. But do I consider myself a specialist in Google Ads? Hell no. I will never agree to help a therapist with their Google Ads account because number one, I understand what my limitations are. My limitation is I am not an expert just because I took a course on Google Ads. I can share what I've learned, but I make it clear I would rather refer you out to a specialist that can help with that. And so, with that, I would say for a therapist who wants to become a coach, they need to have a clear understanding of what is it that you specialize in, so that that way that fine tunes who you're trying to help. So I personally don't help those who are also like starting a practice because I find that that's a lot of mindset work and a lot of documented logistics. I'm in the middle. I'm there to support those who are trying to get clients onto their caseload or they want to transition away from insurance into private pay simply because I have a private pay practice and people can Google my practice and understand like I'm legitimate. I'm still in the field, so I'm not too far gone. And then the last thing is, and I know that you had mentioned this before we started the podcast about like being competitive. I hold a different stance. I am very much a competitive person. And so for me, even though I understand that there's a wide variety of different business coaches out there and they have their own niche and specialty, I still want to be the best. I still want to be able to be known as trustworthy and but at the same time I'm going to be competitive. If I see that there are people moving in a certain direction, I'm going to do the best I can. Now, I understand it's a marathon, it's not a race, and that's also another thing I'll emphasize for therapists if they want to go into coaching that it's going to take time. Building a coaching business is very similar, but yet different than a therapy practice. And similar in the sense of you're using similar marketing strategies, but different because your message is different and the service itself is different. I find business coaching to be a lot more task oriented and data driven as compared to like counseling, which is a lot more reflective and processing like past issues. So, so I'll just wrap that up by saying it's if you're competitive, it's fine. Also, figure out a way of how to balance maintaining relationships. So even though I'm competitive, I understand that there's aspects of business coaching I can't do. So that's why I develop relationships with other coaches so I can send them referrals because I understand my limitations. But I'm still gonna try to be the best. that's still unfortunately that's inherent in me, that I'm very much competitive.
Mhm. So awesome. Well, the last question I always ask is if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
Um, Treat your practice as it's a marathon and not a sprint. Understand that when people are starting their practice off, it's gonna take time to build. And and the last thing I would say is, similar to how we are taught as therapists to trust the process, if therapists don't understand how to run a business, then it's hard for them to trust the process of how to get to a full private practice caseload. So if you can't trust in that, then I would highly suggest you take time to learn how to build it, how to scale it, how to grow it. So then that way you can then trust it. If not, you're just going to be trying to chase every single referral that's coming out there, but it may not fit to what you want to do as a private practice practitioner.
So awesome. Well, I know you have some free gifts. Tell us a little bit about that and tell us how people can follow you.
Yeah, so I offer, at least for now, I offer every therapist a free 30-minute business coaching consultation. They can simply go to my website, onlineprivatepractice.com, to schedule it. And if by chance, if folks are trying to schedule in and there's no slots available, they can just wait to the next week, because it opens up in 2 weeks, 2 week increments. And then lastly, if folks want to follow me, they can go to YouTube. They can type up online private practice, and then I should show up. I should be hopefully still producing some videos by then, but I explained to folks that because I take time to try to develop quality content, I don't normally produce videos once a week. I try to produce it maybe once a month or once every 6 weeks, but I still would suggest for the folks to subscribe to it, so that way you can be exposed to some of the information I'm sharing that I also have used in my practice.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Thank you so much, Joe.
So many good pieces of content in that. As we enter into the new year, we have some really awesome shows coming up soon. And so next up, we are going to be talking on the 4th. We're talking with Rebecca Capps about launching courses on body image. Then we're going to be talking to Christina about OCD, launching a podcast and courses. Then we're going to be talking about saving yourself time and hiring the best people, then money leaks, and then the biggest HR mistakes. So we have some awesome shows coming up soon, right around the corner. We have some weeks that we're doing 3 episodes a week, so make sure you tune in for those. A lot of just like great things coming out of that 7-Figure Practice Club series that we've been doing. Again, don't forget that the 7-Figure Practice Club, that application is open until the end of January. So if you have a 7-figure practice and you want to be around other people that own 7-figure practices, you can apply over at practiceofthepractice.com/club, and we'll be reviewing those applications. We only have 12 spots there. We're going to meet once a month for 90 minutes, and we're going to have 3 25-minute hot seats that we all give feedback to each of those 7-Figure Practice Club members. And then we'll have another meeting for 60 minutes where one of our members is going to be doing a presentation on something they're just knocking out of the park, which is a great way for you to practice your consulting skills, be around other people that are at that 7-figure practice level. And then we're going to have an in-person retreat here in Traverse City. And then we're going to have another one later in the year that's going to be somewhere else yet to be determined. So it's going to be an amazing program for people that have 7-figure practices. Again, you can apply over at practiceofthepractice.com/club. And we could not do this show without our amazing sponsors like Alma. Alma gives clinicians the tools that they need to build a thriving practice. They help you get credentialed in 45 days, you get enhanced reimbursement rates, and they handle all of the paperwork and eligibility checks. If you want to get started with them, head on over to helloalma.com/Joe. Again, that's helloalma.com/Joe to get started. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.